Hi, this is Ligaya Cruz from Ligaya Realty, and I'm here with David Shoup from Shoup Legal, and he's a business law attorney. And welcome, David,
Thank
to
you for
our
having me.
little video. I'm always asked by my clients who owns rental property, is it better to hold it as a sole proprietor, or is it better to do it, create a limited liability company? And so this is a question that David can answer. He's the expert since he's a business law attorney. So David, which is better, an LLC or a sole proprietorship?
Well, there are many things that we consider when deciding whether to form an LLC and use that as somewhat of a holding entity to own the rental properties. One big thing that we want to consider is liability protection, okay? Because when we rely on a sole proprietorship, if you're going to own your rental property in your individual name or perhaps jointly with someone else, there really isn't any liability protection. The LLC has what's called a veil of protection, okay, where we have this shield of liability that can help us if something were to happen. So that's really where it starts out is, do I want to have this kind of protection with my business entity?
So how are you protected liability-wise if, compared from LLC to sole proprietorship? If you have an insurance, can you just claim it on your insurance?
Yeah, well, we always want to have a good insurance policy. That is ground zero for liability protection. And whether we have an LLC or not, always get good insurance policy. But we always like to try to provide a little bit more protection because at the end of the day, that insurance company, may not cover what it is that happens. Okay, so when that does happen, then we can rely on the protection that the LLC will provide us. Okay, so let me give you an example. Okay, let's say there's a slip and fall, floors cave in, there's a leaking pipe or something like that, and that tenant happens to be running their own business out of that rental property. Okay, whether it's a residential property or commercial property, there's a lot of liability there, and then we're getting sued for lost profit or something along those lines. Okay, if we have an LLC, the idea here is that liability from that lawsuit will stay in the company itself. Okay, that business owner, the LLC owner, known as a member, okay, will not be personally responsible or may not be personally responsible for that liability. It will stay in the entity itself. Okay, this will protect the personal assets of the owner. It can protect the owner's other businesses and other rental properties as well. So it's a really good idea in most cases to form an LLC and then transfer those properties into the LLC for this reason.
Yeah, I understand that now. I'm kind of confused myself. So is it complicated to form an LLC?
Mostly no. Okay, this is something you can get started. You file what's called the Articles of Organization with the Secretary of State. Okay, that's a form you can download online. You can fill it in yourself. And then the next step, once the articles have been filed, is now you want to start structuring your company. Okay, this is where good counsel is a good idea to obtain. Okay, how do we do that? There's different ways to structure your company. You can form it more like a partnership, known as a member-managed LLC, or you can form it more like a corporation, which is a manager-managed LLC. There's a lot of pros and cons with both. It's gets a little complicated. But once we decide that, then what you need to do is put together your operating agreement. Now, your operating agreement is the skeleton behind your LLC, okay, and that will structure it, especially when there's more than one owner. It's really, really critical. All lenders will require an operating agreement if you're going to get funding to purchase it, and it's also important to note that it is a good idea to buy the rental property in the name of the LLC. If we buy it in our own sole name and then we transfer it to the LLC afterwards, we risk the due on sale clause being triggered from the terms of the mortgage. So that's something to think about as well. If we want to do it, we should do it right in the onset.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So that's good information to know. If you're still thinking of whether or not creating an LLC or remain sole proprietorship, this is it. This is liability-wise, it's the best, I think. But if you need more information about forming an LLC, you need to talk to an expert. Don't just rely on the forms on the internet, because a lot of people are trying to do that to save money.
Right, yeah,
but in
that
the
could
long run, it can cause you problems. So if you need any information about forming an LLC, David here is the expert. He's an attorney. He practices business law, and he can help you. And you can contact him at
951-445-4114. I offer free 30-minute consultations, so we'd be happy to sit down and figure it out, see what we want to do.
Yeah, so ask him all the questions in that 30 minutes and you can make a decision whether or not, for me, I think it's the best thing to form it as an LLC as opposed to sole proprietors. But you can ask him all the questions and he will give you the answer. Or you can Facebook message me as well and I'll give you his number.
All right.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice day.
Take care.